The restoration of Job. In a land far away and long ago, there lived a man named Job. He was a man of quiet faith, known for his kindness and patience. His days were filled with the gentle rhythm of family life, tending to his flocks, and speaking little but living much. Job was blessed with many children. He had sons and daughters who loved him dearly. His home was full of laughter and warmth. Job's possessions were great, and his heart was generous, sharing with those in need without hesitation. But as the sun moves through the sky, so life changes in ways we sometimes cannot understand. One day Job's peaceful world began to shift like the soft wind before a storm. One after another, troubling tidings came to him. His cattle, sheep, and camels were taken by unknown raiders. His servants who watched over them were no more. Then, a strong wind struck the house where his children were gathered. The house fell, and his beloved children were lost. In the stillness after grief, Job sat in silence. His pain was deep, yet he did not turn away from his quiet faith. Even in sorrow he spoke gently. "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return there. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." Time went on, and another trial came. This time Job was struck with illness. His body became covered in painful sores, and he felt the weariness of each passing day. Friends came to visit him, but they brought many words. They asked why such suffering had come upon a man so known for goodness. Job listened and spoke softly. He did not pretend to have all the answers. He shared his pain honestly, but did not curse or turn bitter. Instead, he longed for understanding, for a calm that might come in the quiet moments before sleep. Throughout all this, Job's faith remained like a candle flickering in the dark, not bright and loud, but steady and true. His wife, seeing his suffering, whispered in despair, "Do you still hold to your faith? Why not give up?" But Job, with gentle resolve, answered, "We shall accept good from God, and shall we not accept adversity?" As the days passed, Job's friends sat with him. They spoke of many things, of justice and fate, of why pain may come into the lives of good people. Job listened and pondered these words slowly, carefully. Much remained uncertain. The reasons behind his suffering were hidden, like a distant star behind the clouds. In the quiet moments, Job spoke to the sky above, to the earth beneath, to the soft breeze that whispered through the trees. He asked questions, wondering about the vastness of life and the heart of the world. He expressed his longing for peace and for his suffering to end, but always with a gentle recognition that some things were beyond knowing. This time of trial was long. It tested Job's spirit deeply, but did not extinguish it. Something began to change. Job's heart started to find a path back to rest, a slow return to the gentle steadiness that had once filled his days. One evening, when the stars shimmered softly in the vast sky, a voice spoke to Job. It was a voice both powerful and tender. It asked questions, not to accuse, but to invite Job to see the world from a new, wider view. The depths of the sea, the height of the mountains, the mysteries of the dawn. Job listened quietly, feeling small yet loved in the vastness of creation. And in listening, his spirit found a calm like a quiet lake under the moonlight. After this, Job spoke with a new understanding. He admitted that many things are beyond human grasp, and that trust might sometimes be the only firm ground underfoot. With time, the winds of suffering began to shift. Job's fortunes changed once more. He was given twice as much as he had before. His fields were filled with new animals, more than he had ever owned. His family was restored. New sons and daughters were born to him, and he cared for them with a quiet joy. His days became peaceful again, filled with the gentle sounds of life, the call of birds at dawn, the soft rustle of leaves, the laughter of children playing in the sun. Job lived many years after, years marked not by loud triumph, but by a quiet, steady presence. His story, whispered down through generations, reminds us that even during the darkest nights, the soft glow of hope can return. And so in the soft embrace of evening, as the world grows calm and the heart settles at rest, we begin to understand the gentle unfolding of Job's journey, a story not of sudden answers, but of enduring trust. The night is peaceful now. Job's tale continues, carrying us gently forward. The morning after the great storm settled into a stillness that felt almost sacred. The sky, painted with soft hues of gold and pale blue, welcomed the new day with a quiet promise. In this serene moment, Job sat outside his humble shelter, his weathered hands resting gently on his knees. Time seemed to fold around him, neither pressing nor fleeing. The weight of what he had endured had softened, and though his body bore marks of suffering, his spirit carried a gentle strength, steady as the turning seasons. News arrived slowly, carried by travelers crossing the land. They came bearing tales of far places and whispers of those who had heard of Job's patience and steadfast heart. The story of one man's endurance had become a beacon in this vast, often unpredictable world. People spoke in hushed tones about his unwavering trust. A caravan approached, winding its way down the dusty path toward Job. Faces worn from journeys yet brightened by hope met Job's steady gaze. Among them were men and women who spoke of new beginnings and of blessings that awaited those who dared to remain faithful. With them came the new calves and lambs, young and thriving, symbols of the life that still pulsed with promise. Job welcomed these tokens of renewal, sensing that the circle of loss and recovery was turning once more. He knew that life would never be free from hardship, yet he also understood that hope, like the morning light, would return again and again. With hands open he received what was given, not just in wealth, but in the simple joys of life restored. In the days that followed, the community around Job stirred with gentle excitement. Neighbors brought food and water, sharing stories and laughter around the evening fires. The children played in the fields, their bright voices rising like a hymn of healing. Job watched, a soft smile touching his lips. Where sorrow had once overshadowed the land, grace was now unfolding, step by quiet step. His new children grew strong, their innocence a balm to the heart that had known so much grief. The animals multiplied, their presence a steady rhythm of life continuing. Even Job's skin, once marked by pain and aching sores, showed signs of healing, as if the earth itself had breathed a gentle mercy upon him. Though prosperity returned, Job remained humble. He understood that the true restoration was not in the things he owned, but in the peace that resided within. This peace did not come from the absence of struggle, but from the deep trust that the unseen hand guiding the world was not indifferent. Even in the softness of these renewed days, Job did not forget the lessons etched deep by suffering. He spoke often with those who sought wisdom, sharing with a calm voice the journey he had traveled, not as one proclaiming certainty, but as a traveler alongside others, moving cautiously yet faithfully through the vast and mysterious expanse of life. "Do not fear the questions," he would say, "for they are the wind that carries us forward. And do not shun the silence, for it holds the spaces where trust can take root." His words were gentle, a quiet offering to those who wrestled privately with doubt and pain. When night came, Job would sometimes rise and look toward the twinkling stars, feeling a kinship with the vast sky. Beneath that silent canopy he found a profound calm, as if the universe itself breathed with a rhythm that mattered. It was here, in these moments, that Job's steady heart sang softly, not with triumph, but with the enduring hope kindled by steadfast trust. Even when the path remains unclear, life stretched onward, woven with simple routines and unexpected joys. The years passed, and Job grew older, marked now by lines of wisdom rather than only the scars of hardship. The echoes of his trials remained, but they no longer pulled at him like shadows. Instead, they had become part of a larger tapestry, a story of resilience threaded through time with quiet grace. As Job lay in the evening of his days, surrounded by family and friends, whose love was as certain as the rising sun, he breathed deeply the serenity earned from a life fully lived, not perfect or free from pain, but rich beyond measure in understanding. And in this gentle close, the restoration was complete, not simply in the doubling of his herds or the laughter of new children, but in the tranquility of a soul at rest, cradled by enduring faith and the steady heartbeat of hope. In the quiet warmth of dawn, Job walked through the fields that now flourished under his care. The soft light settled on the dew-soaked grass, each blade a testament to the passage of time and the mercies bestowed upon the earth. His heart, once heavy with grief, now beat with a steady rhythm, composed and unhurried. These acres, rich with life and promise, reflected all that had shifted within him. The world was once again a place where resilience thrived beneath the sun's tender gaze. Bird song rose gently around him. Chasing the melodies, he followed the path toward his homestead, where the hum of life could be heard stirring anew. The children's laughter, a joyous cadence, echoed from the courtyard. They raced one another beneath the stretches of sky, unburdened by the memory of pain that had once shadowed their family. Their eyes shone with curiosity, their futures bright as the morning. Job paused, watching a lamb stumble playfully into a sunlit patch of grass. The innocence of the moment settled within him like a balm. He breathed in the fresh air, feeling the pulse of creation awakening in all things. It was a tapestry woven with threads of sorrow and joy, loss and restoration, each moment a stitch binding the heart's tapestry closer, stronger. Later, as he sat beneath the sprawling branches of an ancient tree, Job's thoughts drifted across the years that had unfolded. He recalled the heaviness of silence, the long nights spent wrestling with questions that had no easy answers. Yet now, even those times, shrouded in shadow, seemed to have their own quiet purpose, to deepen his understanding and soften the edges of his spirit. A gentle breeze stirred the leaves above, rustling their whispers. Job closed his eyes, allowing the sounds to carry him to a place of calm reflection. In the rhythm of nature's breath, he found a serene companion for his thoughts. Here was the steady, constant presence that had guided him through seasons of uncertainty. It was a reminder that life, in all its complexity, moves ever onward. The community continued to gather regularly in the cool evenings, under the vast sky where stars seemed to sing their own timeless songs. Around the fire, voices mingled, sharing tales of old and new, weaving stories that connected past to present. These moments, simple and sincere, rekindled bonds that time had tested but never broken. Laughter once again filled the air, mingling effortlessly with the crackling flames. Job spoke little during these gatherings, preferring to listen and learn. But when he did share, his words carried the weight of quiet certainty and gentle strength. He spoke of patience, not as passive waiting, but as an active presence, a steady turning to trust when the past seemed obscured. His stories encouraged others to hold on, to remain open to grace even in the face of silence. As days turned to months, the seasons shifted with grace. Gardens blossomed, crops ripened, and the land seemed to breathe along with its caretaker. Job's hands, once scarred and weary, grew strong through work and care. Each seed planted was a gesture of faith, each harvest a quiet victory over the shadows of the past. As prosperity returned, Job's heart remained anchored in humility. He did not chase wealth or accolades. Instead, he sought the richness of connection, the depth of understanding, and the peace that comes from living in harmony with the world. His home remained open and warm, a refuge for the weary and hopeful alike. One afternoon, as the golden light waned, a traveler arrived. She came bearing news from distant lands and a bundle of dried herbs, fragrant and bright. Her eyes reflected both sorrow and hope, and she listened intently as Job spoke softly of his journey. There was a mutual recognition between them, shared experience that transcended words. They sat together as shadows lengthened, finding in each other the comfort of companionship across the miles. In such moments, Job felt the vastness of human experience stretched out before him, the countless souls who journeyed toward healing and restoration. He understood that his story was but one thread in the grand weave of life, yet its lessons held a quiet power, rippling outward in ways he had never imagined. As twilight deepened, a cool calm settled over the land. Job rose slowly and looked up at the stars emerging one by one. The constellations mapped stories of endurance, of cycles unbroken, of hope eternal. He felt his spirit swell with gratitude for the grace that had carried him through. That night, as he lay beneath the open sky, Job's thoughts drifted gently between memories and dreams. There was peace in the acceptance of life's mysteries, a trust that held firm beyond the shifting tides of fortune. His breaths grew slow and even, in harmony with the gentle pulse of the earth itself. The years continued their steady passage, and with them, Job's wisdom deepened. He learned to embrace moments of stillness as sacred spaces, places where the soul found rest and insight. He taught this tenderness to others, encouraging them to listen, to themselves, to one another, and to the quiet voice of the world. Children grew into adults, villages prospered, and the land flourished anew. Through every change, Job remained a faithful presence, his life a testament to what is possible when patience is met with grace. The cycle of loss and restoration wove itself seamlessly into the fabric of time. One evening, as a soft rain began to fall, Job stood at the doorway of his home. The drops tapped gently on the roof, a gentle rhythm that mirrored the heartbeat of the land. He smiled softly, feeling the coolness against his skin. Life, with all its unexpected turns, continued to unfold with gentle certainty. The story of Job, once a tale whispered with pain and questioning, had become a song of hope and steadfast trust. It lived in the laughter of children, the quiet labor of the fields, and the unwavering light in a man's steady gaze. It was a story not just of suffering endured, but of joy reclaimed, of faith quietly blooming in the heart's darkest seasons. As the night deepened, and the rain's steady murmur filled the space between stars, Job closed his eyes in peaceful rest. The restoration was complete, not merely the recovery of what was lost, but the discovery of a new enduring strength. In this calm, he found the everlasting grace he had sought all along. The winds would continue to carry the story forward, to those who listened with open hearts. And in that gentle passing of words and wisdom, the restoration of Job lived on, a quiet flame burning bright in the stillness of the world. In the quiet that followed the evening rain, Job's thoughts drifted gently like fallen leaves on a slow-moving stream. The earth beneath his feet was soft, enriched and ready to conceive new life again. Each drop had cleansed not just the soil but something deeper, his soul's weariness, the residue of old grief. He stood still, embraced by the murmuring wind that carried subtle promises whispered through the trees. Days continued their rhythm, steady and unyielding, yet Job welcomed their pace. He no longer rushed to mend what was broken, or grasp hurriedly at fleeting happiness. Instead, he let moments unfold naturally, like flowers blooming on their own time. His heart, once heavy with loss, now folded into an intricate peace, one not born of resolution but of acceptance. The traveler, whose visit had briefly disturbed yet fortified Job's quiet world, chose to remain a while longer. Together they shared simple routines, tending to the garden, drawing water, sitting in tranquil company beneath the wide sky. Without many words, their presence was a balm, a reminder that understanding often grows strongest in silence and shared solitude. Word of Job's renewed life traveled gently from village to village, carried by those who saw the fruits of his labor, both in the fields and in his calm demeanor. People spoke softly, not in awe but with a yearning to learn from one who had weathered storms beyond measure and emerged with a heart unbroken. One morning, as the first light stretched tender fingers across the horizon, a group of children gathered near Job's home. Their eyes were bright, filled with a curious hope, drawn to the quiet dignity he carried. Job welcomed them with a gentle smile, inviting the youngest to sit close as he fingered a worn piece of driftwood. "Come," he said carefully, "let me tell you a story. Not of grand heroes or distant battles, but of tiny seeds beneath the frozen ground, waiting patiently to rise." He spoke softly of the earth's steady pulse, of winter's stillness, as the necessary breath before spring's awakening. His voice was a caress, a quiet wind through trembling leaves, coaxing young hearts to understand strength born in waiting. The children listened, their questions blossoming like spring flowers eager to reach the sun. Job did not rush answers. He let the conversation settle naturally, honoring the dance between silence and speech. From their youthful wonder, he found anew the simple beauty of life's cycles, the fearless trust that growth follows even desolation. Days turned once more to weeks, and the season shifted effortlessly toward warmth. Under the gentle hand of the sun, the fields waved in rhythmic patterns, the harvest whispering promises of abundance. Job's hands toiled alongside neighbors, his humble presence a quiet leader, a living testament that restoration thrived not in haste or demand, but in faithful nurturing. At twilight, Job would often step beyond the village boundaries, where the world stretched wide beneath the stars. He would rest against a weathered tree, its bark rough yet steadfast, and close his eyes. In that sacred stillness he felt the pulse of ages, ancient and eternal. The universe, with all its mystery, seemed to breathe in harmony with his own steady heart. Through every heartbeat, every sunset shadow, Job understood a profound truth. Life's darkest chapters are not ends, but preludes. They wear the guise of silence and emptiness, only to reveal the softest gold at dawn's arrival. His restoration was not a destination, but an ongoing journey, a continual unfolding of grace woven into each moment. One late afternoon, as the sun dipped low, the traveler prepared to continue their path. Their farewell was gentle, without fanfare, marked by the simple clasp of hands and a shared glance filled with unspoken understanding. In their departure, Job found no craving or regret, only gratitude for the quiet companionship amid healing. The village gathered once again in celebration of the land's bounty. The air was filled with laughter and song, simple offerings of thanks for life's generous gifts. In the midst of it all, Job's presence was steady yet unassuming, like the earth itself, carrying countless stories beneath its surface, unseen but deeply felt. Children danced beneath fluttering ribbons, their joy a mirror of the light that now dwelled within Job. His eyes reflected the shimmer of countless stars, the vastness of a sky that held both sorrow and joy, loss and renewal. He knew his story, his restoration, would weave into the fabric of countless others, a quiet thread connecting moments of human striving and grace. As night deepened, the village settled into soft murmurs and gentle sighs. Job returned to his place beneath the ancient tree, now a sacred anchor in his life's unfolding. In the embrace of darkness, he whispered thanks, not just for the harvest or the healing, but for the endless cycle of becoming. The stars watched silently, eternal sentinels bearing witness to the quiet victory of a man who had learned to trust the unseen, to honor the stillness between breaths. Job's journey was a sacred melody, a hymn composed in resilience, patience, and profound humility. Around him the world rested, ready once again to awaken with grace, to bloom with hope. And in this sacred moment, Job held faith like a gentle flame, steady and enduring, glowing softly against the endless night. When dawn came, soft and pale, it brushed the village with delicate light. A quiet stillness lingered in the air, a tender moment suspended between night and day. Job awoke beneath the branches of his weathered tree, feeling its ancient strength seep into his bones. The world had changed, or perhaps he had changed within it. With slow, deliberate movements he rose, embracing the morning coolness that settled like a gentle balm. His days had once been marked by hardship and shadow, yet now each breath carried a subtle sweetness, the quiet joy of belonging, the simple grace of being present. His footsteps soft upon the earth, the soil, warmed by sun and nourished by rain, awaited his touch. He crouched beside the rows of growing grain, his fingers tracing the green shoots that swayed in the morning breeze. These fragile blades, breaking through the earth's crust, reminded him again of the seeds beneath frozen ground, life persisting quietly, patiently. Around him the village stirred. Children's laughter bubbled like a gentle stream, voices carried by crisp air. They moved with lightness and freedom, their hearts untethered from worry. Job watched them, a faint smile touching his lips. Their joy was a balm, a living reflection of the hope that had settled deep within him. He did not hurry. Time held no urgency here, only the steady rhythm of the seasons unfolding. As the sun climbed higher, Job began his work, tending, guiding, watching over what was entrusted to him. There was no need for grand gestures. The simple acts of care and presence were enough to weave a thread of grace through everyday life. Neighbors appeared one by one, their faces bright with shared purpose. Together they labored, hands joined in humble service to the land and to one another. Job's strength was quiet but undeniable, a steady current beneath the lightness of their laughter, the ease of their bonds. The rhythm of the day mirrored the pulse of the earth, steady, slow, unhurried. Each task became a meditation, each breath a prayer. In his heart, Job felt the deep unfolding of restoration, not as a sudden change, but as a gradual, gentle return to balance. Evening approached with a calm hush. The sky blushed soft pink and lavender, cradling the sun as it slipped beneath the horizon. Job found his way back to the tree, its familiar presence welcoming him like an old friend. He settled beneath the branches once more, gazing upward as stars began to peek through the fading light. In the quietude, Job's thoughts drifted not toward what had been lost, but toward what was continually emerging. The cycle of decay and blooming, silence and song, endings and beginnings, all interwoven in a delicate tapestry that stretched beyond time or measure. He felt a profound gratitude for the patience birth demands, the resilience that sorrow cultivates, the silent growth that often goes unseen. Restoration was not a single moment or a final prize, it was a way of moving through the world, a gentle unfolding of spirit and earth entwined. Job's hands rested lightly upon the rough bark, grounding him as he breathed in the deep night air. Somewhere far above, the stars continued their watch, ancient guardians of countless stories, forever whispering the language of hope. He whispered thanks, not just for the harvest that filled village tables, or the laughter that warmed their homes, but for the quiet miracles hidden within each day, for the tiny seed breaking through frozen soil, for the traveler who once passed by, now carried gently in memory, for the children who danced in the fading light, their joy a living flame. This night Job held close a gentle certainty that even in the stillness, life moves forward, that restoration is alive in the unseen, the unspoken, the spaces between heartbeats. It is a patient teacher, a quiet companion on the winding path. As the village settled into sleep, Job felt himself part of a vast and ancient story, a story not bound by grief or triumph, but by the enduring flow of becoming. Breath by breath, step by step, moment by moment, he closed his eyes beneath the tree, and the world whispered around him, a soft, endless song of return. Dawn offered a soft, muted light, almost hesitant, as if careful not to disturb the gentle calm that had settled within Job's spirit. The air held a quiet coolness, touched just so by the promise of the sun's warmth. He rose slowly, savoring the peaceful hush of morning, before the village awakened fully. The world seemed to breathe with him, slow and steady, as though time existed only to witness his gradual renewal. He stepped outside his simple dwelling, feeling the smooth stone beneath his feet and the delicate caress of dew-kissed grass. This small harmony, the meeting of earth and flesh, was a whispered assurance that life continued in its softest, purest forms. Job paused, his hand grazing the bark of the tree where he had found rest the night before. It stood strong, rooted deeply, its branches stretching upward in quiet resilience. The village began to stir, but not hurriedly. Windows opened gently, soft voices drifted through the air, and the scent of bread baking mingled with the crispness of the morning. Children's laughter bloomed, light and unburdened, threading through the warmth of new day. Job smiled, sensing in their carefree play a reflection of the hope that had quietly taken root inside him. Taking a slow breath, he moved toward the fields once more. The soil felt alive beneath his fingers, dark and fertile, ready to receive the care it needed. Each tiny sprout, fragile yet determined, was a testament to nature's ceaseless cycle, the unspoken promise of renewal and possibility. Job worked with patient hands, turning the earth gently, nurturing life not through grand gestures, but through small acts cloaked in tenderness. Neighbors appeared gradually, their tasks intertwining with his own. There was no rush, no competition, only a shared rhythm born of mutual understanding and quiet support. Together they planted, gathered, and tended, weaving strands of connection that fortified both their land and their spirits. Job felt the weight of solitude lessen, replaced by an understated strength rooted in belonging. The steady march of hours followed the natural pulse of light and shadow. Time no longer pressed or demanded, it simply moved alongside Job, a companion in this unfolding moment. With each passing minute, his thoughts grew clearer, less tangled in the ache of loss, and more aligned with the patient strength found in growth. At day's end, Job returned once again to the familiar tree. It was an anchor, its shade a sanctuary beneath the endless sky now brushed with stars. He settled on the soft earth, the coolness grounding him as he lifted his gaze upward. The constellations traced silent stories across the heavens, ancient and unchanging, reminding him that he was part of an immense, ongoing tapestry. Reflection embraced him gently. Life's rhythms, decay and bloom, sorrow and joy, ending and beginning, moved through him like a quiet river, unhurried and steady. He understood now that restoration was less about sudden rescue and more about patient tending, a daily honoring of both the wounds and the healing growth hidden beneath. Gratitude gathered quietly in his chest, for patience, the silent teacher, for resilience, that quiet, stubborn root, for the unseen, steady progress that often passed unnoticed. He thanked the ordinary miracles that knitted life's fabric, the singing of birds at dawn, the soft murmur of wind through leaves, the simple laughter of children whose happiness felt like a balm to his soul. In this stillness, Restoration revealed itself not as a destination, but as a gentle, ongoing journey. It was a way of being present, of allowing time to weave its slow magic, ever faithful, even when hope seemed fragile. Job's voice softened, a whisper to the night, to the earth beneath him, and to the endless sky above, an expression of quiet thanks for this patient, silent companion. Sleep came gently as he lay beneath the tree's protective arms, the earth's heartbeat syncing with his own. In dreams he wandered through vast fields of golden grain, through gentle rivers and endless skies, always moving toward a place of becoming. He sensed the story he lived was ancient, part of a vast circle of return and unfolding, a truth that stretched beyond pain, beyond time. Morning, when it came, would bring new light and new rhythms. Yet for now, Job rested, anchored in the deep calm of restoration, the steady pulse of life turning quietly toward hope. Morning arrived with a softness, the light filtering through leaves like whispered promises. Job stirred beneath the steady branches of his tree, feeling the gentle pulse of dawn in his chest. His breath was slow, measured, in tune with this quiet world settling into wakefulness. He rose unhurried, aware of the subtleties, the hum of bees drawn to the blooming wildflowers, the cool earth beneath his feet still moist from night's dew. Each sensory note grounded him, connected him to a larger rhythm beyond himself. The tree's bark was rough against his palm as he reached out again, a familiar anchor in the quiet morning. As he walked toward the fields, Job noticed how the light played upon the grass, shifting shades from pale gold to emerald green. The small shoots he had tended the day before now stretched toward the sun, fragile yet steadfast. These sprouts, humble in their beginnings, carried a promise. Growth was not sudden or loud. It was a deliberate, patient unfolding. Neighbors were already at work along the rows, an elderly woman bending gently as she weeded, a young man carefully planting seeds. Their motions spoke of care, of ritual. Without words, Job joined them, feeling the shared silence of committed hands. The soil was warm, crumbly, alive beneath their fingers. Together they cultivated more than crops. They cultivated hope, serene as the breeze. He recalled seasons past, times when storms had ravaged these lands, when loss had crowded his shoulders like a heavy cloak. But this moment was different. Now, he could witness healing breathing slowly through the earth and air. Restoration was not a single event. It was the quiet persistence of life returning. Again and again. Lunchtime brought shared bread and soft laughter. Stories of the small triumphs and trials woven through their days floated amid the simple meal. Job listened, his heart lighter, nourished by community as much as by food. These connections, so ordinary yet profound, were indispensable threads in the fabric of renewal. Afternoon shadows lengthened, stretching across golden fields as work gave way to rest. Job found a place beneath the tree once more. There in the fading light he allowed himself a moment to simply be. The world felt vast, expanding beyond grief or pain into something enduring and luminous. He watched as dusk deepened, stars beginning to scatter across the sky's dark velvet. In this quiet, Job felt a deep gratitude, not just for the healing he sought, but for the steady resilience of the earth, for the steady heartbeat of time. Restoration was no longer a distant goal, but a gentle companion walking beside him, one step at a time. With night fully come, Job whispered thanks, soft words falling into the cool air, mingling with the rustle of leaves. Sleep came easily, bearing him into dreams where horizons stretched endlessly, fields ripe with growth, skies heavy with possibility. In those visions, healing spread like dawn light, slow yet unstoppable. When morning returned, it was with the same tenderness as before. Job rose with the sun, feeling his spirit aligned with the steady pulse of the world around him. Each day carried its own grace, its own chance to nurture and be nurtured. As he stepped into the morning, Job carried with him the quiet certainty that restoration, like the gentle unfolding of a leaf, the patient turning of the seasons, was his to live, day by day, breath by breath, and in that knowledge he found peace. The soft light of early morning filtered through the branches once again, dappling the earth with golden patterns that danced slowly as the breeze passed. Job sat quietly beneath his favorite tree, breathing in the cool air, aware of the small movements around him, the twitch of a bird's wing, the gentle ripple of leaves, the faint hum of insects waking. Each sound blended into a tender symphony of life, steady and unhurried. He reached over to where the shoots had begun to stretch higher, their green tips emerging bravely from the soil. The tiny plants seemed fragile, yet they carried within them the promise of fullness, of eventual shelter and fruitfulness. It was not speed nor spectacular growth that mattered, he thought. It was the presence, the patient unfolding that gave these sprouts their quiet strength. Leaving the shade of the tree, Job walked slowly toward the fields, feeling the warmth of the earth beneath his feet. Around him the village stirred to life, a gentle unfolding of motion as neighbors came out to greet the day. Their faces softened by recent laughter and hard-earned peace. There was a shared determination in their steps, a subtle but profound bond, woven through the shared work ahead. Hands touching soil, fingers tracing the contours of furrows, the community worked side by side. There was no need for loud words. The communication was in the rhythm of digging, planting, and watering, a language spoken by heartbeats and sweat, by the quiet promise each seed held. Job marveled in this simple communion, this unfolding story of renewal, written quietly in the earth. At midday, the air filled with the scent of bread, herbs, and freshly gathered greens. They gathered beneath a wide canopy of trees, settling in clusters like leaves in a breeze. Stories surfaced easily here, memories of days when hardship pressed close, thin moments of joy found in the smallest things, dreams shared for what might yet come. Laughter spilled softly. Beneath it all, a deep sense of belonging wrapped around Job's soul like a warm shawl. The afternoon sun shifted gently, bathing the land in a mellow light. Job found himself returning to the protection of the tree beneath which he had slept and dreamed. Every fiber of his being settled into a calm embrace, the steady pulse of life pressing in quietly. He considered the length of days behind him, how sorrow, once so overwhelming, had begun to soften, unraveling slowly like threads pulled from a worn garment. He understood now that healing was not a destination, but a continuous becoming. He closed his eyes, allowing memories to drift like leaves on a gentle stream. There was pain still, quiet and deep, but also a vastness beyond suffering, a wide horizon of hope stretched out before him, endless and unconfined. Night returned with a velvet calm. Stars traced ancient paths overhead, their cold light a steady counterpoint to the warmth growing within. Job whispered words of gratitude, not loud or bold, but soft and sure, like a quiet river's flow. He felt the presence of all that had been, all that was now, and all that might be. Time had not erased the scars, but it had sewn them into a story of resilience, one blossom among many. Sleep came gently once more, carrying Job into dreams woven from the same endless horizons he had come to know, a landscape where pain and joy danced side by side, and healing moved forward without rush or interruption. Morning light returned with its steady pulse, and Job rose slowly, feeling the steady beat of life coursing through every vein. The world awaited him anew, familiar and yet freshly filled with possibility. Restoration was no longer a distant hope, but a living companion, steady and true, present in every breath and step. He moved through the village with careful grace, greeting neighbors whose smiles carried the weight of shared experience, the quiet victory of survival. Together they tended the fields, each small action a testament to the power of slow, deliberate care. At the end of the day, Job again rested beneath the tree, its branches a gentle cradle. He let his thoughts settle like dust on still water, entrusting the future to the ceaseless rhythm of dawn and dusk, growth and rest. In the silence, a peaceful certainty arose, the knowledge that healing was not a journey to be rushed, but a quiet unfolding, day by day, breath by breath, seed by seed. And with that awareness, Job felt his heart draw close to the simple truth, sustained across the ages, that life endures, gently, patiently, always toward the light. With dawn's soft light spilling quietly over the village, Job rose from the cool earth beneath the tree. The sprawling branches above whispered a silent greeting, leaves faintly trembling in the gentle morning breeze. In this tranquil moment, he felt a deep stillness settle within him, a calm bud poised to bloom with the day's unfolding. His steps were unhurried as he made his way toward the fields where the villagers labored. They greeted him with serene nods and subtle smiles, a wordless exchange woven from shared understanding and mutual care. Each face he passed carried traces of life's weatherings, scars and laughter, endurance and moments of reprieve, Around him, the land breathed in harmony with the community's rhythms, a quiet testament to what could be nurtured through patience and tenderness. Job knelt beside a row of newly planted seeds, fingers tracing the tender soil, reminding himself that healing, like growth, required both time and nurturing. The earth beneath his hands offered a gentle reassurance, steady, unseen progress beneath the surface. As the sun ascended higher, the hum of activity wove into a soft, collective pulse. Without words, the villagers moved as one, lifting, planting, watering. Their quiet diligence created a rhythm, a steady beat echoing the unspoken truth that shared effort binds and healing is made more bearable side by side. At midday, the market square welcomed them like a sanctuary. They gathered beneath a canopy of trees, shade filtering the sun's warmth into a cool embrace. Stories unfolded gently like fragile flowers, tales of loss and perseverance, of moments when hope flickered and was fanned anew by the breath of community. Job's voice mingled softly with the others, careful not to unravel the delicate mood. He spoke of his journey, not as a final revelation, but as a continued unfolding. In his reflection, he found no need for grand declarations, only the quiet acknowledgement of steps taken, missteps learned from, and the subtle strengthening of spirit. Returned to his favored tree as afternoon waned, Job allowed himself to sink into its welcoming shade. The bark pressed familiar messages into his skin, grounding him in the steady pulse of the village's heartbeat. Here he felt the delicate balance of memory, past sorrows softened by new joys, old wounds tempered by present care. Slowly he observed the village's fading activity and recognized the day's end not as a closing, but as an invitation. The folding of day into night brought not darkness alone, but an opportunity for rest, for reflection, for the quiet stitching together of fragmented strength. The cool of evening drew Job's thoughts inward. He recognized how each breath was a turning wheel, carrying pain and hope on the same journey. There was no haste. There was only the patient rhythm of persistence. Gentle, persistent, unbroken. Under the wide sky, Job's eyes traced the slow migration of stars. Their steadfast light spoke of ancient endurance, encouraging him to trust in the unhurried flow of healing. The vastness above echoed the quiet truth he was beginning to embrace. That restoration wasn't a destination, but a presence, living, pulsing, and ever near. As night deepened, sleep came softly, carrying Job into a realm where dreams mingled shadow and light. Here his fractured spirit wandered between sorrow and renewal, sometimes trembling, sometimes soaring. In these dreamscapes, healing revealed itself as an ongoing dance, a weaving of strength and vulnerability, slowly moving toward wholeness. When the sun whispered its return, Job awoke with a quiet gratitude. The freshness of morning was not merely outside, but within, a reminder that life in constant flux offered endless chances to grow anew. Walking through the village, his steps traced gentle arcs of connection. Smiles passed like soft benedictions, and unspoken bonds wove between the dwellers around him. Each shared glance, each silent exchange, was a thread in the fabric of survival and care. The fields called him next, a familiar beckoning to tend and witness growth. Hands working the soil were hands cultivating hope, living proof that beneath hardship lay fertile ground for restoration. Evening again found Job beneath the tree. Its ancient presence comforted him, a steady companion in a landscape of change. He listened to the quiet pulse of life, soft breezes, distant laughter, the shifting shadows of twilight, and allowed himself to be cradled by the rhythm of earth and sky. The day's end was a lullaby of peace, a gentle folding inwards after the outward stretch of labor and connection. In this cyclical harmony, Job glimpsed the intimate dance of growth and rest, the patient unfolding toward light that defined his journey. He settled into the quiet truth that life in its tender persistence moves forward by gentle degrees. There is no rush, no finality, only the steady unfolding grace of being alive. With the tree's roots as his anchor and the village as his heart, Job felt the quiet strength of continued restoration. Each breath, each step, each moment held the promise of becoming, small, patient, enduring. And so, beneath the stars' watchful gaze, Job rested once more, held in the soft embrace of healing's ongoing song, ready to greet whatever the coming days might bring. With dawn's first light, the village stirred gently, a soft murmur threading through the cool air. Job rose quietly beneath the gentle glow, the world around him tender and awakening. His breath was steady, his heart steadying in cadence with the slow unfolding of the day. In the calm moments before routine carried him outward, Job paused to listen, to the hushed whispers of waking leaves, to the faint stirrings of birds beginning their songs. This morning was not marked by grand gestures or promises, but by a soft resolve that felt deep in his bones. He felt rooted here, present in the unspoken vows of growth and restoration, quietly made each new day. There was no impatience, no rush against the hours, only a patient communion with the slow, deliberate rhythms of living. The village was coming alive with its familiar sounds. The steady tapping of the weaver's shuttle, the low murmur of exchanged greetings, the clatter of tools. Job moved with ease among the fields, hands working tenderly with the soil. Each seed he nestled beneath the earth was a small act of faith, a humble trust in the unseen processes of life to carry them toward flourishing. The sun climbed higher, casting an amber glow that warmed the ground and revived the tendrils of green. Job paused, palms cradling the cool earth, his spirit aligned with a profound sense of belonging. He was part of this land, the cycles of surrender and renewal, the quiet pulse of existence intertwined with the community's shared heart. Later, as the heat softened into afternoon's lull, Job sought again the sanctuary of his tree. Its branches stretched wide, leaves murmuring soft blessings, sheltering him in a twilight of gentle shade. Here, he allowed his thoughts to drift like autumn leaves in the breeze, acknowledging the moments of hardship and healing alike, without cling or resistance. Rest settled over him like a balm, fragments of memory intertwined with possibility. The village, too, seemed to breathe in harmony, a collective patience stitched through the fabric of their days and nights. Job's trust in this unfolding was a harbor, steady and sure, grounding him in a knowing that restoration, true and lasting, could not be hurried. Evening came with a quiet hush, the sky gently folding into hues of lavender and rose. Job lingered beneath his tree as stars timidly appeared, each pinprick of light a subtle reminder of time's vast embrace. In these moments, he felt the sacred pulse of balance, between the weight of sorrow and the lightness of resurrection, between the past shadows and the promise that shimmered just beyond. There was no need for words here, only the rhythmic song of life weaving through limbs and earth, village and sky. Job's breath slowed, deep and peaceful as the night deepened its gentle hold. The healing he sought felt less like a destination and more like a presence, steady and enduring, like the stars that watch silent and sure. Lying beneath the stars again, Job closed his eyes to the lullaby of night insects and the cool whisper of evening winds. His spirit floated in this delicate balance, the dance between loss and gain, pain and growth ceaseless and tender. He wasn't alone. Every heartbeat in the village echoed alongside his, weaving a tapestry of shared endurance and hope. As sleep approached, soft and inevitable, Job felt a deep gratitude, not a rush of relief or triumph, but a quiet appreciation for the journey itself. Each step, each breath, a gift of renewal, wrapped in the gentle hands of time. When morning touched the earth once more, Job awoke with a quiet smile tucked beneath his eyelids. The village had stirred again, its breath steady and true, and he was part of its enduring song. There was still work to be done, fields to tend, hands to hold, lives to nourish. Yet now, these tasks carried with them a lightness, a sacred trust in the slow, patient unfolding of healing. Job rose beneath the soft embrace of dawn and stepped forth with calm strength, ready to meet the day as it came, unhurried, steady, and open to the gentle miracle of restoration in every moment. The morning air folded gently around Job as he moved beyond the familiar paths of his village, stepping toward the edges of the fields where earth met wild grass and distant trees whispered softly. The light was tender now, a delicate glow that brushed the world awake without hurry or demand. He paused, breathing deeply, feeling the coolness enliven his lungs and steady his heart. There was a sacredness in this quiet, an unspoken promise held between dawn and the slow arrival of day. Job's fingers traced the rough bark of a nearby tree, its age and resilience anchoring him in the present moment. He thought of the seasons he had weathered, the sorrows that came like storms, and the new growth that followed, always gentle, always patient. Around him the village's murmurs began anew, the soft clatter of tools, the birdsong weaving through open windows, the stir of lives rising with the sun. Each sound was a thread in the fabric of community, a reminder that no one walks alone. Job felt the intertwining of his path with theirs, a subtle but profound connection. Together they moved forward, a collective strength woven from countless small acts of care and endurance. He knelt at the earth's edge where new shoots pressed through the soil, tender shoots that mirrored his own fragile hope. Planting a seed was more than tending crops. It was an act of faith, a declaration that life would continue, sometimes quietly, sometimes with fierce determination. His hands worked slowly, reverently covering the seed with earth, sealing it within the promise of tomorrow. As the sun climbed, warming the fields and the village alike, Job found himself drawn back to the heart of the community, an open space where children's laughter danced lightly on the breeze, where elders exchanged stories rich with memory and wisdom. There, under the watchful eyes of time, he sat listening to the rhythm of voices and the gentle cadence of everyday life unfolding. Time seemed to stretch and bend in this sacred place. Moments expanded with ease, each one inviting stillness and attention. Job breathed in the calm strength that surrounded him, feeling it settle deep within his being like a gentle tide. It was a strength born not from grand gestures but from enduring presence. The very act of showing up, again and again, was itself healing. The sun moved steadily across the sky, casting shifting shadows that told silent tales of passage and renewal. Job's thoughts drifted, not away but inward, where a subtle transformation unfolded. The sharp edges of grief smoothed into something softer, less demanding. Healing, he knew, was not a race or a sudden change, but a patient unfolding, a slow unwinding as pain into peace. Amid this unfolding, Job's gaze lifted to the stretch of sky overhead, vast and steady. The endless blue was a balm to the soul, a reminder of an unshakable expanse beyond momentary troubles. In that space, he found room to breathe freely, to hold both sorrow and joy in a single, gentle embrace. Even as evening approached, and the village began to quiet once more, Job remained present, rooted like the ancient tree where he had rested before, yet open like the wide sky above. He felt the enduring pulse of life beneath his feet, the quiet drum of hope that never faltered. With night's arrival, the village softened into a lull once again. The stars glimmered with steady light, each one a silent witness to the ongoing dance of loss and restoration. Under their watch, Job's spirit felt the continuity of existence, the passing of trials, the persistence of hope, the tender return of peace. Lying beneath the vast dome of night, Job's thoughts were not burdened, but light, buoyed by a profound sense of gratitude, not for what had been won, but for what had been lived and learned. In the stillness, he honored the journey that had brought him here, this fragile, precious space of quiet renewal. The village breathed around him, a sleeping heart wrapped in the arms of darkness and dreams. Job's breathing matched that rhythm, slow and steady, a silent song of endurance and trust. As dawn whispered new possibilities, Job rose with a calm smile, a quiet affirmation of life's steady pulse. He carried within him the gentle strength of ages, the grace of patience, the power of community, the sacredness of each new day. With each step forward, he embraced the unfolding path, steady in faith and gentle in hope, ready to live the slow, sacred process of healing and restoration. The world around him blossomed with quiet beauty, a reminder that even after the longest night, light returns, soft and sure like the touch of a friend's hand. And in that return, Job found his truest truth, that within the patient heart of the world, he was home.